Hi everybody, it's Justin Kennington with SDVOE Alliance, and today I'm joined by Jerome Hemming, who is a technical sales manager for content and media products at Christie. Jerome, welcome.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining us today. What I thought we should dive in and talk a little bit about is how the sales process goes, particularly for SDVOE products, AV over IP, when the IT team is in the room. And you and I were speaking just a minute ago that as soon as you breathe the word network port, the IT team is in the room.
Correct.
So where does it start and how does it go?
Yeah. What we see often in these kind of meetings is, of course, you said it already, the IT people are present because, yeah, you're going to bring something on the network, and they are often a big obstruction because who is going to take the responsibility? We are talking about AV, so is it the AV team or the IT team? So they are, yeah, conflicting with each other. So it's often in those kind of situations, first of all, get the IT team involved from day one. If they are not there, try to get them there because you're going to do something with their network or their infrastructure. In that regards also, if they are flexible having this application on their network, it's the easy part, of course, but the conflicting part can be that they don't want this kind of stuff on their network because it's generating massive bandwidth. So we're talking in SDVOE, we're talking about 10 gigabit of data streams. So you have to pre-inform them about their switches. Is the backbone of their switch capable of handling these kind of bandwidths? But also, if not, supply an additional solution. Yeah, isolate it. Bring your own IT network. Yeah, with the SDVOE certified switches that are handling these kind of bandwidths, and make a bridge between their original network. And they are often easing up in that.
That's what you're describing is an architecture that we used to talk about. We called it IT over AV. The idea being let's build some segments of the network which are built for and dedicated to AV. Meanwhile, you can still use that as an extension of your IT network. So the AV traffic stays localized in that area, but IT can flow through it as needed, and you get a nice expansion of the network. Today, how often do you see an approach of the AV and the IT networks being truly integrated versus an approach of the AV network being segmented off, being segregated from IT? What's the mix?
The mix is, I would say, 50-50, and it's also the heavy region depending. Yeah, I'm coming from Germany, for example. In the European continent, you see really that the IT it's their network, so they try to isolate the whole IT process itself from the AV process. But in other regions, and especially Middle East, they are more, and I don't know if it's a knowledge difference or what it is, but they are more flexible in these solutions implementing over the network. But there, of course, often it happens that the current infrastructure is not suitable. Often networks are based on 1 gig, or they have to purchase additional switches, but they are maybe under contract with certain brands that they have to use these switches, where then has to be tested if these switches are also capable of handling SDVOE. What at the end is, of course, just 10 gigabit and IGMP and jumbo frames, and then you're done at that point.
Right.
So it's a mix, I would say, and it's very region dependent. In the US, it's tougher. That's a fact.
Okay. That geography difference is interesting to me. I didn't realize that or think about that. I wonder. It's almost frustrating for me to hear what you just said. You're just the messenger. That's okay. But to think of in this case a German IT professional saying, "Oh, you know, that's AV. I don't want it on my IT network." Well, I bet their telephone system is on their IT network, isn't it?
But these telephones are pure IT.
Well, they are, but I think so is AV.
Yeah. But
you know, and what I think the question that we as an industry have to ask and have to answer is how do we turn the mindset to realize that AV is simply another application that is in need of IT resources, just like the phone system, just like the printers, just like the email system. But you know, where and why are they drawing that line?
The difficulty will be, and especially the telephone is a good example. The telephone is a manageable device. It's a phone, you have maybe some logging system, and you have, at the end, 10 buttons. Yeah, and a router and the hex key or whatever it is.
There's only 2 buttons on your Christie Terra unit.
Yeah, but where it's going to? It goes at the end to a projector.
Yes.
Yeah, so and that's or to a display. So it's it's video at the end. And in organizations, you have often a group of people that are. Yeah, let's take a conference center. There are people spreading out the projectors and all the equipment. Yeah, putting then at the end maybe an SDVoE receiver and a transmitter in it, and they are responsible for the AV. So now currently, the client is complaining, I don't have an image on my display.
Right.
Who are you going to call? The IT guy because the signal is not being transmitted, or the AV guy because the projector doesn't get a signal.
Right.
And there's the difficulty appearing.
And
there is a lot of room for improvement or cooperation. And that's why I say get the IT team as soon as possible involved, because then you can have turn them on your hand.
now you're saying something that is not news or surprising to me, which is that the challenge we face is not mostly technical anymore. The challenge we face has a lot to do with people.
Yes.
And how to make sure that instead of ending up in a situation where AV is pointing their finger at IT and vice versa, where they start to see each other as colleagues, as a team, who ultimately, I'll say it, ultimately are all working under IT. You know, AV to me, it should be a specialty of IT. IT is about building a network that moves data around. How much data, what kind of data, I don't know. Maybe there are specialties like AV, for example. But I think you're right on. AV and IT have to be involved from the beginning of a project. In English, we have a phrase that says sometimes it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. But I think in this case,
permission is better.
Best to start with permission. You don't want to meet a very angry IT guy after you've started dumping 10 gigs per second into his network by surprise.
And at the end, of course, you can create agreements with each other, because the AV guy knows mostly about his IT part, what he delivered. So if they have access to monitor there is an issue, they already can pinpoint, is it the AV equipment, is it the IT equipment? At the moment it's the IT equipment, involve the IT people, don't try to fix it yourself.
Yeah, that becomes now a process within those teams, just as you say. Do these steps, you know, is the projector turned on? Yes. You know, is the network light on? Yes. And then eventually you get to a point where you say, oh, I think it is an AV problem, or I think it is an IT problem. And just like any problem in the business, you triage it, diagnose where the issue likely is, and then hand it to the right expert. I think that, again, the problem we have to solve as an industry is to almost quit thinking of AV as special as we think of it. And instead of think of it simply as a specialty or a specialization that's part of IT and that just fits into this bigger picture of moving data around.
I will shake hands with them. Keep them happy.
Yes, you know, take some people out to lunch. Come on.
Oh, well.
So do you have any maybe examples in your experience of a customer or client, you don't have to say names, but somebody who's had really good success with this? And what did you take away? What did you learn from their approach to integrating IT and AV?
The experience I have is there are successes and negatives.
Sure, let's hear them both.
The success is, of course, that we managed to get these people together and talk together, but also start working together for the future. Because IT suddenly got interesting in this solution.
Yes.
Because I saw also the advantage of it. Take especially as the VoE. Yes, there is a special network. It's maybe on 10 gigabit on fiber, but also the SDVoE devices bring network with them. Instead of creating an extra network port for the projector, suddenly it's there already.
This is our IT over AV concept, exactly, yeah.
Correct. The same is with the extension of the keyboards, of the mouse, and it makes the infrastructure easier. We see IT people starting to use SDVoE devices just as extenders.
Wow.
It's not the purpose of it, but okay, if IT is happy to use that, why not?
Yeah.
The negatives are also there, unfortunate. I've seen projects being lost because of these conflicts.
Wow.
And they were decided to go over a classical cabling situation at the end.
Sure.
Where at the end, the AV integrator was pulling the HDMI cable, the IT department was pulling their network cable, because they were network devices anyway.
Yeah.
So where the whole IT solution was being stripped. What is, of course, hilarious.
That seems like such a shame and such a loss ultimately for that business. who now has a more expensive solution that doesn't do anything that the other solution couldn't have done.
If you,
All it does is keep the AV guys and the IT guys apart.
if you
That's not a
make the,
benefit.
if you make the client aware of the infrastructure that is being created for SDVoE is future ready,
Yep.
you have extra points on your hand. We know all, we are in the limitations of the bandwidth of HDMI. Yeah, there's maybe a little bit of extension, but squeezing 8K at 60 Hertz through an HDMI cable,
Yeah.
difficult. Where on fiber, it's the bandwidth of what the laser is being capable of to provide.
Right.
We come to points that we can throw 100 gigabit over a fiber.
Sure, easy.
So these limitations are less, and the client is being prepared for future. Yeah, more future-proof.
Yeah.
Not to forget, of course, tempering. Yeah, we're talking about fiber. Yeah, SDVoE, you have an encryption layer, you have the security. You cannot listen on the RF.
Yep.
You cannot, with some antenna or so, listening to the signals. So fiber gives also those advantages. And these things pinpointing is at least for helping the client to make a decision for the SDVoE solution, where he can put pressure then, if the IT team is still against it, that the IT team will be convinced by the client itself.
Forgive me for not knowing this, but does Christie offer SDVoE products with both copper and fiber choices?
No, only fiber.
Only fiber.
Only fiber.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
And so for all the reasons that you just named, right?
Yeah.
The future-proof, the distance, the security.
correct.
That's very interesting. And I know that you guys have it built in. Not only do you have standalone encoders and decoders, but it's built into
In the projectors,
many
yeah.
display products now, right?
Yeah. We have input boards for many of our projectors, so there's directly fiber in.
Yep.
So no additional receivers required in that case.
Right.
Makes the whole installation easier, but at the end also the controllers over there, audio if necessary, all the signals that you require that are being transported over SDVoE are then also available at that board.
Wow. It's great stuff.
Yeah.
Jerome, is there anything else we should touch on?
No, I think we got it here.
I think we did. I think it was great chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah.
And thank you for watching.